I want to go ahead and bring in Senator James Inhofe of Oklahoma, Republican who has been supporting the president's decision to pull out of the Paris deal here. Senator, thank you so much. So your reaction to what the president had to say tonight?
Well, we were in the middle of an interview when it started, and so I had a front row seat. I was very pleased with the position that he's taken. It's one that I had that he would. It not only was it a campaign promise, but it was something in the best interest of jobs and the economy in America. So I was very proud of him. What we're about to talk about before he got on was the fact that the agreement that was made by President Obama was that we would reduce our CO2 emissions by 27% by 2025. In fact, that could not be done. His own EPA said there's no way it could be done. And on top of that, it would have to be ratified by the members of the Senate. And you couldn't find 30 votes in the Senate that would agree with that. So we had a president who went to Paris, made a commitment on behalf of the United States that we could not uphold. Then the other countries that are in there, President talked about China. Well, China, under this agreement, is allowed to increase their CO2 emissions for the next 13 years and then consider starting to reduce them. Well, that's not much of an agreement. I mean, that certainly we're the only ones, the United States, being punished in this type of arrangement. India was mentioned, but what he didn't say was that India has made the statement that if you get me $2 trillion out of the Green Fund, we will agree to some kind of a commitment on CO2 emissions. So anyway, this was a bad deal to start with. It's one that was based on faulty science, and the best evidence of that is that when we had ScienceGate in 2009, they completely discredited the IPCC, that's the United Nations, science, and one guy in particular they caught falsifying science, whose name was Michael Moore. And
so, Senator, I just want to.
Oh, I'm sorry. That is Michael Mann. I didn't mean Michael Moore.
Okay, so I just want to jump in here and just ask you. You know, you say that the deal is based on faulty science. So does that mean you believe all of the rest of the countries, nearly 200 that are committing to this deal, are also in the wrong here?
Oh, no, they're not in the wrong. In fact, I don't blame them for doing what they're doing, because these countries, and I've talked to several of them in Africa that have attended these meetings. This is the 21st year that they've had the annual meetings, and they're all lined up with the expectation of getting a lot of money, a lot of funding as from this some type of an agreement. Now, the agreement it was signed by several people, several countries, but not countries that are going to have to make a sacrifice. Let's take, for example, the UK. The UK still hasn't come up with any type of specific agreement, nor have most of the European countries. So they're not all in agreement on this. And the science that is there, you have to keep in mind, has been the same science for quite some period of time. Richard Lindzen, who's the MIT, arguably the best authority in these circles, has said that all these things that they're saying about the temperatures and these things are not accurate. The science is not real, and I think that the problem is that the scientists that are out there really concerned about doing the right thing are not being heard.
Senator, I'm looking at some figures here from the Federal Elections Commission, the disclosures from the Center for Responsive Politics. This was published by The Guardian. It shows that over the past 3 election cycles, in 2012, 2014, and 2016, that you have managed to take almost $500,000 from folks in the oil, gas, and coal sector. Is that true, Senator?
That may be true. I haven't seen those figures. I would be shocked.
Senator, then how can you be an honest broker when it comes to talking about this, Senator? If you've taken money from these groups, how can you be an honest broker in moving forward?
When you run for office, there isn't a person running for office that hasn't had to go out and raise funds to run for office. Now, maybe the system's wrong, but nonetheless, every senator, every House member has to go out and raise funds. And quite frankly, it's it's always a difficult thing to do.
So do you think your critics are correct when they say that your opinion is biased on this because you haven't had a fair shake at this because you're accepting money from these folks who contribute?
See, those are people who obviously don't like me anyway, and I understand that. And that's one reason. So a lot of people are not willing to be totally honest when it comes into controversial issues like this, because they know that there will be people out there in some of the extreme liberal communities that are going to make that person appear to be a dishonest person the way that you're trying to make me appear to be at this time.
No, sir. I'm not in any way trying to make you appear to be that way, but it's just a criticism, sir, Senator, saying that, you know, a lot of there are 22 Republicans who told the president they want to pull out of this agreement. And some of the criticism of these senators is that there's a financial benefit here, that there are businesses, as we know, that may lobby members of Congress. And that's part of the motive to tell the president not to pull out, big business.
You really need to be talking about is Michael Moore and some of these people who are he's the one who is going to put $100 million in the last, in fact, he did, according to him, and was, and Tom, what's Tom's last name? That was the other one. Well, anyway, the two very wealthy liberal entrepreneurs who put money into liberal Democrat campaigns, and yet I don't call them dishonest. They're out trying to raise funds. Yeah. So you have contributions.
Well, just to be clear, Senator, I'm not calling you dishonest in any way. I just wanted to ask you about, your position with this when people have been critical about exactly who is for and against this Paris climate deal.
Mm-hmm. Well, Senator, just keep in mind those people have their own missions, and we understand that.
Senator, as it relates to climate change, do you believe you're on the right side of history for future generations of Americans and people in this world?
Oh, I think so. And that's why, normally when you talk to someone who has read the book that I wrote on this subject called The Greatest Hoax, understand the background of this, understand what the motivation of the United Nations is in bringing this up. Climate changes. We all know that. It changes, and throughout history, it's always changing. That isn't the issue, and that's not the hoax. The hoax is that the world's coming to an end. It's because of man-made gases, and that is not the case. But don't let people confuse the issue by saying that you don't believe that there's climate change, because there's always been climate change. There always will be climate change.
Okay, right. Senator James Inhofe from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Thank you.